Healthcare postponed right now, at least the vote on the new replacement bill, but the blame game, rather, has begun. The powerful network of conservative donors backed by billionaire Koch brothers have vowed to spend millions of dollars supporting House Republicans in the 2018 re-election races. But there is a catch. This is only if they vote against the current health care bill that is backed by President Trump and his administration. Here to discuss with me now, Charlie Kirk and Akash Chougule. Charlie, you know, the Koch brothers, they've got a lot of power, a lot of entities that they're involved with, including Heritage Action, have been pressing very, very hard. And now the threats have gone out. Hey, if you go with this Ryan bill, you're going to have trouble in the midterm elections. Was that a smart move on their part?
Well, I think I do have to applaud these groups for standing on principle. Look, I'm not a big fan of this health care bill. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying we might have to go back to the drawing board. I think Joe Walsh in the previous segment made a lot of good points. If we're not going to fulfill our promise to actually repeal Obamacare and not do Obamacare light, then what are we really doing here? And look, I think the broader conversation, instead of trying to do the blame game, which a lot of these stories have been advanced by the media that does not have the best interest at heart, talk about actually conservatives are uniting around more issues than ever, whether it be Gorsuch or a lot of these different bills are passing through. Healthcare is the #1, obviously, issue right now that has the most amount of visibility. And I would not have done this first. I think we should have done tax cuts and regulatory reform before dividing the caucus unnecessarily. But look, I mean, as far as these groups that are backed by, you know, the Koch brothers, I do applaud them for standing on principle, because if we don't repeal Obamacare now and get rid of the subsidy, we might never, ever get rid of it.
You know, Akash, I had Representative Louis Gohmert on yesterday. He told me that, in fact, in the negotiating process, the fingers are being pointed right now. The blame game has begun, and the innuendos have begun, like, hey, you know what? You may get a bad tweet. You may see someone come after you. So it's obviously on both sides of the aisle, but, you know, I think your organization is backed by the Koch brothers. Was it smart for them to be so out front with this? It's putting some serious pressure on the Republican Party when they should be riding high right now.
You know, this is what Americans for Prosperity exists to do. We do not exist to complement the Republican Party. We exist to hold it accountable, to hold politicians accountable to the promises they made. For 7 years, they promised to repeal Obamacare. This bill does not do that. It leaves in place major portions like the Cadillac tax, the Medicaid expansion, the essential health regulations. So we want to applaud conservatives who stand on principle and fight for full repeal. We're going to do just that.
Even if the media jumps on top of this situation and says, look, these guys, their first major effort to govern in Washington, D.C., and they blew it. Are you concerned about that, Akash?
All we're saying is do what you promise, right? I mean, there's always calls to govern. Our first call is to do what you promise. The bill that we're looking for them to pass, they have already passed once before in the Senate, and they've passed it dozens of times in the House. 2015, a clean repeal bill. The only thing that's changed is there's now a president in the White House who would sign it into law. Governing looks like doing what you promise. Doing what you promise means repealing Obamacare. This bill doesn't do it. Our call is pretty simple. Defeat Obamacare 2.0, and let's move forward doing what they've been promising for 7 years.
Then on that point, Charlie, as soon as this was crafted, a lot of people, the whispers became very loud into a chorus that Paul Ryan was leading President Trump down the wrong path. Now, whether intentional or not, you know, you can get into whether that's, you know, because there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that believe it's intentional. But do you think perhaps President Trump, in an effort to sort of extend the olive branch in the kumbaya spirit of D.C., relied too much on Paul Ryan in this particular case?
Well, possibly. And I think there's a great point that was made, which is why were these House Republicans and Senate Republicans so quick to repeal Obamacare before President Trump, but now all of a sudden they don't want to do that? And it would beg the question, was that political posturing in the past, and now they actually never wanted Obamacare to be repealed? They just wanted to run on that so they could get reelected? And I think that's the real question here, because what they're trying to replace this with, I kind of put in quotes, it's Obamacare light. It keeps a lot of subsidies in place. It keeps a lot of taxes in place. It doesn't allow health insurance to be bought across state lines. These are things that they promised to the American people that they're not fulfilling. And I think President Trump, he campaigned on a clean repeal on Obamacare, and I believe that he has yielded to Paul Ryan on this situation. Quite frankly, I think the Trump administration will be very likely to sign a clean repeal if it got put on their desk. So I put this on congressional Republicans a lot more than I do on the White House. And the American people demanded this in an uproar back in November. And if they don't, if Congress ignores that, then it could continue to break these divisions in the Republican Party that would have decades-long ramifications.
All right, guys, the ultimate gut check going on right at this very moment. Guys, thank you both very much.